What I see happening here is something that's really long overdue, in that people from a number of different cities in the Bay Area working with different issues are coming together to come up with a joint strategy to move forward. And I think that one of the challenges that we've had in the Bay Area is we have an abundance of progressive people, an abundance of progressive organizations, no alignment, no opportunity for us to really work together proactively. So what happens is other people take the initiative and we wind up reacting. And that's all we've done for probably a couple decades now. This is a real turning point.
10 years ago, local advocacy groups for low-income communities and communities of color had no venue in which to connect and strategize on the regional decisions shaping the lives of the communities they served. In response, Urban Habitat founded the Bay Area Social Equity Caucus to explore regional equity issues across city boundaries and sectors. 2008 marks the Bay Area Social Equity Caucus's 10th anniversary, an opportunity to document and build on the lessons we've learned together.
You know, outside of New York City, really, this is probably one of the most diverse areas in the country.
Alameda County, a portion of the Bay Area, is now the second most diverse county after LA County in California. So working people and communities of color are the focus of our work.
I have 11 grandchildren, 5 of them have asthma. I've been living in the same apartment building for 16 years. Every year for my 16 years, I have had somebody die of cancer. Those are the people I represent, those families, those children. I know children taking asthma inhalers to school. I know of people who just don't have the health care that they need to be able to deal with these issues just because of where the port of Oakland is. I see my role in representation is all those communities like West Oakland and those people who, and giving the information to those people to be able to speak for themselves.
The epidemic of chronic disease is going to essentially overwhelm our systems unless we have better and more effective approaches. And those better and more effective approaches have to deal with social, political, and economic power in low-income communities of color. Otherwise, every time something washes into society, whether it be Hurricane Katrina, pandemic influenza, HIV/AIDS, SARS, you name it, those low-income communities are going to be much more impacted than other communities because we haven't built the power and the resiliency that allows communities to withstand these challenges.
We're not doing enough to keep up with the challenges that our city is facing because we're not dealing with the sort of causes of the problem, the systemic causes. So no matter how many job training programs we create, if we don't get to the point where we're trying to tackle poverty, long-term poverty, if we're not preparing our kids to make sure that more of our students graduate, and as a new school board member, I'm very sensitive to the fact that right now we're seeing a 40% dropout rate for many students in our community, and that these are mostly kids from low-income backgrounds and kids of color. We're losing out on having a prepared workforce. We're losing out on having successful families who can stay in our community and spend in our community and invest in our community.
In the San Francisco Silicon Valley area where folks, rents went up really high, people had to leave because they couldn't afford housing in those areas. So we noticed a high influx of new folks moving into Richmond and the San Pablo area, and particularly immigrants coming from the South Bay. So what has impacted one part of the region impacts another part of the region.
You can put a lot of energy and use a lot of the community's energy fighting fights that can't be won. And the SEC is a place where people can sit down and put together a strategic roadmap that is a crucial part of piece of information and a crucial tool for grassroots activism.
So if you're trying to deal with housing issues that people are having, there are some things that you could do at really local level, but more often than not we would hit up against the fact that it's a much bigger issue that can ever be effectively addressed at the neighborhood level.
Without the work of Social Equity Caucus, we would be in our silos. It's like geographic silos or area of issue silos.
I think the great thing about working with other organizations is that every organization has honed a particular skill and a particular capacity, and they bring that to the table. And I mean, this is really, and when it works, it's like music. It's like a symphony.
We can plug, fill each other's blind spots and help build that power to really be effective.
One of the programs that I've been promoting as a city council person is restarting a regional collaborative to look at how you reduce violence in neighborhoods in cities like Richmond and Oakland and San Francisco. We had a program like that in the 90s that worked very successfully. It reduced homicides and crime, focused on reducing domestic violence, focused on reducing truancy, and the communities that participated in this regional collaborative actually saw a reduction in crime and violence. Unfortunately, like most things, when things get a little better, people disband those collaborations, and that collaboration was disbanded.
By simply like getting together quarterly, learning from each other about the issues, we make our perspective broader, and we are able to be more effective in our work by making these connections and be able to have more effective arguments when we advocate for change, and also lift up our spirits.
The Social Equity Caucus played a direct role in convincing me personally and convincing us as an organization to deepen our analysis and to understand our work, not just at the neighborhood level, but as part of regional and national dynamics and international dynamics.
I think the challenge in terms of implementing a regional agenda is less about sharing of information, although I think that is key. It's about figuring out ways to implement good ideas across geographic boundaries.
If we coalesce, if we work in collaborative fashions, in a collaborative fashion with other people of color, I'm sure there are connections we can make to other groups. We can put forward a progressive agenda, or at least someone will listen to that progressive agenda. Maybe only 25% of it, 15% of it gets implemented, but it's 15% more than would have occurred had you had someone who had a tin ear to issues of social and economic and transportation justice. So I'm hopeful.
Change is the change that we bring. Let's be clear about where change comes from. It never gets handed to us. It never gets written up in Washington and mailed out to everybody. And it's not going to come to you by email or by text message. Change is change we make.
I think that that's the moment for us to really surf the wave of change. Before, I used to say that I felt like a little fish against the current. And then now, finally, a current is coming, and we are prepared as Social Equity Caucus organizations to surf this wave of change.
The ability for us to actually leverage the trust that's been developed, the relationships that are there, the understanding of everyone's role within the movement that we now have, that we didn't have 5 years ago, that we didn't have 10 years ago. I think that we really are at a moment in time where we can actually work differently and achieve the type of scale of impact. Like, people are having different conversations. And I just think that the possibilities are unlimited at this point with regards to the Bay Area actually being a model for fundamental change, where we can actually have our folks in leadership positions. And it's not just about organizing from the outside, but people are saying we are the leaders for the entire region at this point. And I'm just excited for what that could potentially bring.